I'm Doug Brubaker, and I'm a Republican candidate for Lancaster County Commissioner. I'd like to start by sharing with you a short story. Thursday, June 9th of 2011 is a day that our family will never forget. Late that afternoon, our appliance store and remodeling design center was struck by lightning and destroyed by fire. My 93-year-old grandfather at the time was racing around trying to save cars and other belongings. That night he ended up in the hospital. And in hindsight, it was probably good that he did, because that got him away from having to see the destruction, that of which he and his brother-in-law had built with their own hands back in the early 1950s. Our family found out firsthand that night that there's something very, very important that none of us can live without, and that's our firefighters and first responders. No man, woman, and child in Lancaster County can do without these people. All of us hopes and prays to God that we never have to use them, but if you do, as we found out that night, you sure are thankful to God to have them. In my 12 years as a municipal official, I have found out firsthand the struggles that our fire companies have. First with our 3 fire companies, and then by extension, as I've toured around the county, I've learned from all of the firefighters that they have 2 things in common. One, they struggle to find and retain volunteers, and number 2, they struggle with their funding. I've also learned that there is a complete and utter lack of communication and support from the Lancaster County Commissioners. With funding, there's no funding that comes from the commissioners. There is some funding that comes from the state, and it varies from fire company to fire company. And even the funding that does come through, it oftentimes has strings attached to it. Where it is earmarked or where it is permitted to be used oftentimes isn't necessarily the area of greatest need. A brand new piece of apparatus, a fire truck, can cost anywhere upwards of $2 million, with an average cost being somewhere around $1 million or more. Most of the funding that the firefighters get ends up coming from their local municipality, especially when it comes to financing a fire truck. And the rest ends up coming from fundraising. And that is something that a lot of our fire companies are struggling with. They find themselves devoting more and more time to fundraising, with less and less return coming for the effort that's expended. I had mentioned about volunteers. Before anybody new can set foot on a piece of apparatus, they have to undergo anywhere from 80 to 180 hours of training. If I'm elected county commissioner, I'm going to see to it that we give first priority to our firefighters and first responders. They feel like they've been neglected and at times even completely ignored. I aim to change that as Lancaster County Commissioner. Thank you for watching this. The Friends of Doug Brubaker have paid for this, and I appreciate that. Thank you, friends.